Hello, welcome back to Road to Master. I hope you all have an amazing day. We're here going over a very, very exciting game. My first classical game against a titled player. How crazy is that to say? A 22-12 player. Wow. That's so for context, 2200 is when you get the National Master title in the ECF, which is the English Chess Federation. You can get the Candidate Master title if you reach 2200 FIDE, which I believe is slightly harder, just because FIDE generally is harder. But either way, super exciting to get the chance to play this guy. He's a very, very strong player. I think the strongest player I've ever played in a one-to-one classical game. I've played, I think, a WIM in a Blitz game, which was exciting. I got my ass handed to me there. And I played a GM in a Simmel, which was also super, super exciting. And as well, I got my ass handed to me there. Anyway, this is an interesting game, actually. It's part of our club championship. I was with the Black Pieces. And yeah, I was hoping for a King's Indian. Because I feel like that's the most fighting option I have. I've played it against him in some Blitz casual games, friendly stuff, and I had probably the most competitive results, which is not saying a lot, but I was hoping for that. But luckily, I did do some slight prep on the Trompowski, which I knew would be a possibility. So that's exciting. And against the Trompowski, it's kind of annoying. You can play it all sorts of different ways. I would recommend playing g6. I think it's quite fun. You get a very interesting pawn structure and some still good kingside prospects if they go for something like a fianchetto setup. Unfortunately, that was the only line I knew, and my opponent decided to go for something else. So I was completely out of the water after e6 and c4. By the way, you take inwards. You're forced to take inwards. They aren't forced to take the knight, but it's the theory, the theory move. And after you take, you go f5, which seems strange. But I think it's actually a decent move. You've got control of the center still, so they can't ever really go e4. Well, I guess they could at some point, but it would involve something like f3. And you're opening this diagonal up for the bishop. They've traded off their dark squared bishop, which is why they're happy putting these pawns on dark squares. And maybe eventually you can go for something like c5 and try break open this and free this dark squared bishop at some point. Alternatively, it's also like a probe into black's position if they ever castle kingside. You know, you've got some quick pawn pushes that can do things potentially. It's interesting, and it's a unique pawn structure. You don't really get to play this sort of thing often, so I thought it was cool. And then c4 is when I'm completely out of theory, which is great. I know this guy is like so knowledgeable about openings, and I'm out already. So that's a great start. H5 also sort of theory. For a different system. I assume it works here as well. The computer says it's the best move. And the point is you're still looking at quick pushes. The bishop can come to h6 a lot of the time as well, which seems awkward, but the queen could potentially come to f6. So you've got like this double diagonal coming on, which isn't like as strange as it sounds, I think. And again, you've got quick h4s, h3s, which is important if they go for the fianchetto setup. Knight c3, very natural. And then d6 here. We've not developed any of our pieces. However, this is still sort of theory. Yes, I don't know the exact lines with c4. But the setup and the pawn structure remain the same, so I don't think they can really be bad moves. So I'm just reusing the theory that I knew for the fianchetto line. And the reason we go d6 is this dark squared bishop isn't going this diagonal. It wants to go on one of these two. So you want to free up this bishop potentially. I don't know if f4 is ever a plan. You're looking to go knight you're looking to go knight to d7 actually is the move, which I play. And the reason is just to put it back on f6. and that's where it belongs, apparently. I don't know why it doesn't belong here. Maybe you're looking for some c5 ideas, but the theory just says that it belongs here, and I trust the theory. So, hey, we're going to do that. Those are my next moves. Oh, actually, yes, h4. h4, maybe a slight overstep because they haven't fianchettoed. If they would have gone there instead, I think h4 is a great move. Because you're potentially looking at h3, in which case this bishop is going to be completely dead. Yeah, you can't get it quite yet, but maybe you go something like f4, and all of a sudden h3 potentially could work. You've got queen g5 ideas still, or queen f6, and then bishop h6. I like h4. I think it's probing. You don't have to do anything with it right now. You could also push if you really wanted knight h3. If you're scared of h3, I think works, and it's just super interesting. I think you've sort of cracked open White's position already. They've committed with the c pawn, and they're probably unlikely going to castle kingside. So where are they going? I don't really know, but it looks fun, right? It looks super fun. Probably fianchetto and then move the knight at some point somewhere. Anyway, that's a fun little sideline. Knight f3 changes things, and I probably should have adapted my plan a bit, but I don't think h4 is necessarily a bad move. Maybe slightly overextended, but I think it's fine for now. And here's the problem with the fianchetto. Instead, let's go back. With the fianchetto, they don't have the option to go h3 because you would just take. And then this is just horrific for White, I think. Off the bat, you've got queen g5 coming in, hitting the pawn with check. You could maybe push f4 and try... well, maybe not, but still. I think queen g5 is probably the correct move, and you're hitting both of these pawns. It just looks super nice. So that's why you can't go h3 with the fianchetto. Which is my mistake, because they can go h3 here, and all of a sudden my pushes are very slow. I'm going to have to go g5, g4, maybe g3, and it's just a headache. I don't think I'm really cracking open White's position anymore, and that should have been a sign, I think, really, to switch up my plan and play a more slow game, get the fianchetto in and try play potentially on the queen side, or at least slow White's queenside attack down and just chill, basically. I think after h3, that's when the plan should have changed. Unfortunately, I'm too stubborn. I am way too stubborn. Knight d7, like we said, going to knight f6, because it's what the theory says. Again, I probably should have changed my plan. Maybe c5 here, potentially. I don't know. Bishop g7, apparently. Okay. And maybe then c5 is a bit more appetizing because you've got some threats. Maybe triple the pawns up. Could be interesting. I don't know. Knight f6 anyway. Queen c2. And I think it's pretty clear what White's plan is. They're putting potential pressure on the light squares, which is slightly scary, actually. Maybe some sack ideas. Maybe they can go e4 as a break. Alternatively, the queen's quite flexible here because it's supporting these pawn pushes, potentially, and maybe like rook b1 is coming, or rook c1, or maybe castles, and then you get both the rooks in, and all of a sudden these queenside pawn pushes are very fast. So White knows what they're doing, right? And I don't. My plan is dead in the water, and I really need to switch up here. I go c6, which I think is a reasonable try. You're stopping some invasions from the knight, and you're also asking questions about what pawn they're actually going to push, which I think is reasonable. Maybe also opening up some queen space to try maybe pin the knight and see what happens. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad move, and that's the thing with like a lot of these moves I think you'll see in the game. They're not necessarily bad moves. Until I run out of options, and that's what these higher rated players will do to you. They will punish these okay moves. Like, up to this point, I've been able to get away by punishing bad moves and not like making sure my moves aren't bad. But I think in order to get to the next level, I need to be punishing okay moves, you know, and that just comes from a deep understanding of the position, especially like the pawn structure and doing all the boring stuff. Basically, I think is the way to go forward, really. Which I mean is good to know and good that I think it's identified, but it's going to take some work. It's going to take a lot of work, especially unfamiliar pawn structures like this. Just to be able to like go off the top of your head and understand what is actually happening in the position, I think is a real skill, and is what separates like the 1900s from the 2200s, you know. And it's definitely, I think, at least one of the main ways to get to the next level. Rook c1, like we said, looking for these pawn marches. Yeah, I think rook b1 also could have worked. I don't see why not. But this seems very fast at the same time. Again, bishop g7, it wants developing. I go knight h5 for some reason, and I think this is probably me still looking to stick to my theory of going for this weird kingside push, which is just never going to happen. So this, I think, is the start of the downfall, really, of this game. When I should have really switched up and tried to slow down this attack by doing something I don't really know. I mean, developing would help, right? I go for these weird attacks that work in some positions, but hardly at all in the wrong position. So we know that, we're aware of that, and I think I've gotten better at that since I've played this game. Anyway, knight h5, and then b4. Like we expect, the pawn storm is coming, and we have to do something about it. Queen f6. Okay, yeah, it's not the best move. Again, like, not bad, okay moves. They're going to get punished, I think, at some point. It really just wants bishop g7 and develop and get the king safe. And then we finally get a pawn break. d5, not the best pawn break. The computer wanted b5, but I think that can be forgiven. I think a big thing about d5 is that it's opening up space. And another reason why bishop g7 was good, because it sort of discourages d5, because now maybe we can chop off some stuff and reduce the attack, I guess. But anyway, b5 was played. And I go bishop h6. I think it's a fine move. Bishop g7 is probably still better, at least threatening to trade some stuff off. I don't have to deal with this right now, because I would just take back, right? And then I think I'm fine. If anything, I've opened up some lines, which could be helpful, I guess. And we just castle, and see what happens, basically. So I'm not scared about that. Bishop h6, I don't really know why. Maybe I was hoping for some like knight g3 where I hit this. If they ever castle, could be tricky, you know. For example, there takes, let's say, and then check. There's tricks, you know. There's tricks. I still think this is bad. The computer says +2, which is a lot, because I mean it's two pieces for a rook, and they're my two developed pieces as well for their undeveloped sort of pieces, I guess. So it's not great. Yeah, maybe we have some very slight play on the king side, but I don't think I would want this position, really, looking back at that. Anyway, c5, incredibly natural move, I think, really asking questions of what I'm actually doing here. I don't think I want to take either of them. If I take this, the knight's coming in, hitting my queen, which is nasty. If I take this, I mean, they probably just take back and say, again, this is still going, and now I'm going to get d6 in, which is going to be horrific, I think. Or just maybe, I don't know about takes, but or they could just leave it there, you know, leaving it as a valid option as well. Knight d4 potentially. and things fall apart quickly, I think. So I ignore it, basically. I don't think I can take either of these, and I just say I'm going to castle. I'm going to get safe. And I don't think, really want to take it either, because, I mean, what happens, takes, queen takes, and I think this is not great for me. It's definitely white with the advantage, but I think we've reduced a lot of the pressure here, and if they go the other way, I think it pretty much is similar. We're threatening to take this now, so they probably have to take, and then maybe even queen takes here could be slightly better than b takes, just saving the pawn structure, and like, it's just a position, it's just a position. So they decide to castle as well, leave all this tension here. And then g5, I think is yeah, that's when it starts to go downhill. My thought process was this: I have no idea what's happening on the queen side. I have studied this opening for the king side attack. I'm against a higher rated player. The result's likely not going to go my way. We might as well throw some stuff at the king and see what happens. Worst case, it's a learning experience, right? So that's what I did, and it turns out to be an incredibly bad mistake. It goes from about even at plus 0.6 to a shocking plus 2.57. I don't know why that's not considered a blunder, but I guess because there's no immediate material hanging, chess.com is hesitant to call it a blunder, but I would call that a pretty significant mistake, at least. 94, apparently an inaccuracy. Just takes, apparently, I guess, and then now these trades are favorable for us, for white, sorry. Well, I guess you get the pawn, right? At least you get the pawn. Maybe you get a second pawn. Sure. Yeah, they decide to go knight d4, which I think is a natural move. You're threatening to take the c pawn now. You are also... Are you threatening to take this? My calculation is not great. Takes. I think so, right? I think so. So you're threatening stuff. It's still good for white at plus 1.86. And then I decide to go f4, sorry, for some reason. Just throwing more and more pieces at the king. Absolutely horrendous moves. And the reason this one particularly is so bad, because we just opened up this square. This square was pretty well controlled before. And we just give my opponent that square, which is horrific. This is under threat. Both of this is still under threat. Maybe like a knight here or something. I don't know. But where is the queen going, first of all? I found that queen e5, I think, was the safest square. Everything else promptly loses, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you can't go there because of takes, I believe. And if takes, then knight takes. Also, probably that one's slightly better. There was an error classifying a move, apparently. I don't know what that means. But yeah, this one's probably way better. That looks so bad. Basically, I don't think there's anywhere for the queen to go other than e5. So I found that. And then queen e2 brings on a very interesting sequence, actually. The best move, queen e2. And this is hanging, and then this is hanging. Luckily, we do have a takes train, which is interesting. And I was like, I don't think I'm saving this. Where is the knight going? They have like takes. Oh, they don't have takes because the knight would be hanging, but maybe they have like takes. Still, like the c and d pawn are still up in the air, so I can't really retreat too much, I don't think. So I just go for it, which is the best move. Takes. Maybe I can do something with his d pawn, I'm hoping. And the position has calmed down a bit, but white has a very scary threat after c takes d6. What is the threat, you may ask? The threat is indeed Rook to c5. Oof. What am I going to do there? Yeah. There is also potentially like some knight f3, knight g5 ideas threatening some mates. I don't know. But I think this is the big one, right? Rook c5. And the problem is, well, let's say I waste a move, right? Rook c5. I mean, this is coming. Rook takes is coming. So I need to defend that. I can't go there. That's hanging. I can't go there because of the pawn. I have to go queen g7, but then rook takes g5 is pinning my queen to my king, which is just devastating. So that is the big threat. The computer has a nice way of defending it, but I decide to go with b6. Which, yeah, is a blunder. It just is. Knight c6, also a big threat, by the way. Which is why you can't move b6, because of knight c6. You hit the queen, and you're also threatening knight to e7 mate, which is insane. Guarded by the pawn, so I actually have to give up the queen for the pawn, and then this comes, and then, oof, yikes, takes with check. It's very, very nasty. It's very nasty indeed. b6. The correct move, by the way, was rook d8. And that's actually a very clever sequence, because if they try the same trick of rook c5, we have rook takes d6, counter-threatening the queen, which is insane. It's still good for white, because they win the pawn at the end of it, potentially. But we're alive, right? And the point is, if takes, we can block with g6 if we really want to. I think there might be a spicier line, actually. Queen h5, yeah. And queen g7, we're still under threat. The pawn is still under threat as well, so queen g7. Rook takes, we luckily have rook to g6, blocking the pin. And we are still surviving. Still better for white, however. Yeah. My opponent, after b6, didn't go for knight c6, went for knight f3 instead, which classifies it as a miss because, I mean, knight c6 is done in 2 moves, resignable. This still plays on, although it's still very good for white. I go queen g7, and I'm like, we'll go into an endgame. I have the d pawn. There is this pawn, potentially I can pick something up. By the way, we're even on material this whole time. Even somehow we're even on material. I give up this pawn. They take there, which is very clever, rather than taking here. I think it's just tidier to take the f pawn first. Because if I take back, then they take the h pawn, which is what happened. However, the computer has a very cool way. You actually ignore this, and you go rook to d8. And the problem is you can't actually defend this pawn. If they go to rook c6, then you just go bishop b7. Where is the rook going? You can try rook c7 and counter-threaten the bishop, but just takes. And then all of a sudden, you know, I don't mind this for black. I don't mind this for black. You know, yeah, if takes, then just rook takes, and you play on. Yeah, you've got the pawn. You're down a pawn as black, but maybe, yeah, you know, you can try pick this up, but then this falls. So you're down a pawn. Maybe it's drawable. You can play on. There is also potentially the threat of bishop a6 with d2, which is interesting. But unfortunately, they just have rook to d1, which actually no, that loses because you pin the rook actually, so they can't take back. Very clever. Yeah, there's a few tricks, like I say. Knight takes h4, carrying on. Rook to d1, bishop e6, threaten this, and these are just computer moves, I think. And sort of goes into a potentially playable position for black, which is insane to think. By the way, that's why they can't really ever take this pawn, because you go rook d4 and then you hit this pawn, and all of a sudden you've got more pawns that could potentially be passes, and the king's, yes, it's facing an army of pawns, but it's in front of them at least. Right, these are on the other side of the board, so there is not nothing. Let's say. Anyway, I decided to take back, and then the game is pretty much over. Then I can't get in to defend this pawn because this is in the way. Yeah, I mean, what is happening here? This is over. Very tidy from my opponent. I can try go for this, but at this point, like the pass pawn, I think he's just going to do it for them, and I've got nothing really. Although it's a pawn down endgame with rooks, which could potentially be drawn. This is super loose, and then you've got so many pass pawns. It's not really worth it. So I decide to keep the bishop on the board and try hope for something at least. I think this is falling anyway, but yeah. Overall, I think a fun game. And then, by the way, f4 seals it in. This bishop has to stay with the pawn. The king has to stay here to avoid the check. Yeah, it's not nice. It's not a nice position at all. And what I would expect from a 2200. It was a fun game. I enjoyed playing it, and it's always a great experience to play someone this high rated, and you always learn a lot. And I think I did this game. There were a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, that was that. Yeah, I feel happy. I'm not too upset about this. It was a fun game. A privilege, I would say, even to play a title player. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like if you liked. Please subscribe if you really liked. And I'll catch you guys all later. Bye-bye.